patrons, welcome back to another video. This video is going to be on nutrition and specifically on the importance of your gut microbiota. I think the gut microbiome is something that's not really talked about very much in regards to health, whereas actually there's so much of an emerging evidence to show how big of an impact it actually has on human health. So I wanted to make this quick video just to highlight a few things we can do to help our gut microbiome. So if you don't know what a gut microbiome is, it's essentially the bacteria within the gut of every single human. Every single human has this bacteria. It's very natural and it's actually a necessity for human health. Every human has a colony between 1 and 5,000 different types of species of bacteria. Some of these species are more or less beneficial, but the ratio and the main types of diversity of the bacteria are what's most key to having a thriving colony of bacteria, which is beneficial to your health. So during pregnancy, the fetal gut is sterile, and when the child is then born into the world, they are then colonized with this bacteria, and it can come from the mother's skin, from the surrounding environment, and also through breastfeeding and breast milk. And this is a very important time for a child, as this is the bacteria that's going to start to grow within their gut. Bacteria gradually becomes developed and diversified during the growth of the child, and further bacteria is taken in from the change in diet as the child is weaned, and also from other environmental sources as well. The gut microbiota is constantly changing. It's never exactly one stable thing. The amounts of each bacteria that grow and thrive change depending on different things, for example, the environment and other factors, which I'll talk about later on. So why is it important? The colony of bacteria play a vital role to help humans to break down indigestible food components so that they are able to be absorbed into the body. These food components we would otherwise not be able to digest and consume. Short-chain fatty acids are also generated by bacterial activity, which are a major energy source for the gut epithelium, as well as proteins that are required for gut barrier function. The gut microbiome is a topic that is currently being widely researched for links to many different types of health and health conditions. And the evidence is growing stronger and stronger about its effect on human health overall. Some areas that are already very well researched are gut health, immune system health, neurological function, cardiovascular health, and weight management as well. The gastrointestinal tract has a really strong connection with the nervous system, showing the effects that it can have on brain function, even things like mental health. And in addition to that, it has a very strong link with the immune system. The gut and the immune system have to work together to decide whether the food in the gastrointestinal tract is pathogenic, so bad for you, or whether it is just simply food to be digested. So there are some associated health conditions that have been strongly linked with the gut microbiome. The gut is constantly changing, and this can be due to diet, stress, and other environmental factors such as the use of antibiotics, which can actually have really long-lasting effects on the types of bacteria you have in your gut. They can be both beneficial and harmful changes, and this can then have a knock-on effect on our overall health and disease risk. There are some environmental factors that can have an effect on chronic inflammation in the gut, which can then lead to a multitude of different conditions, for example, inflammatory bowel syndrome, IBS, cardiovascular disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, obesity, poor immune function, psoriasis, acne, some cancers even, and it can also have links to neurodegenerative disorders and neuropsychiatric conditions. That's just some of the new emerging evidence that's coming through at the moment. And if you do want to read more about that, please see the blog below, as all the evidence I have referenced below, and you can actually go and research that and read the studies yourself if that's something you're interested in. So what kind of environmental triggers are we talking about then? There is some evidence to suggest that excessive sanitation and an overly clean environment in the home in early life may prevent the body from establishing that whole sort of healthy, diverse range of bacteria in the gut. We know that there are a lot of bad bacteria, and often when you say the word bacteria, you assume it's something negative. But actually there are many positive bacteria that actually do help the human body. So we don't want to necessarily get rid of everything and have a completely sterile environment. So what this overly clean environment can do is affect the body's ability to recognize what is just a food item or just a general item in the environment, and distinguish that between an actual pathogenic item. And then you can get somebody who maybe has a lot of allergies because they are excessively reacting to normal things in the environment. So I mentioned the antibiotics effect before, but what can happen is that antibiotics can be taken into the body and not only work to kill the bad bacteria, but can also have a knock-on effect and kill some of the good bacteria as well. It can change the diversity or the ratio of the bacteria within the gut, and this can cause some unfavourable microorganisms to flourish and grow, whilst others that you maybe want more of can maybe die off and they struggle for competition. Another possible cause of a troublesome collection of microorganisms or gut microbiota is low fiber and processed diets, which are really common now in the West. They are really poor at creating those short chain fatty acids that are vital for gut health. And the type of fat can also be affecting the gut microbiome. Saturated or trans fats from like baked and processed types of foods, or even too high in omega-6, might be leading to inflammation in the gut. And lastly, there's a little bit of light now being shedding on additives and their effect on the gut microbiome, and they may be helping as well to increase gut inflammation. So that's a little bit of the kind of science behind it. So the most important thing is, what can we do to help our gut microbiota? One really key thing is dietary fiber. Diets with high intakes of dietary fiber have been linked with lower cardiovascular disease, lower body weights. It helps to excrete waste from the body, but its presence can also slow down the absorption of glucose, which is good for things like diabetes prevention. When it's fermented in the large intestine, lower down, it can actually help to reduce blood cholesterol as well. So dietary fiber is a type of carbohydrate. It's usually an indigestible type of fiber, and carbohydrates are often portrayed as bad in the media. Like, there's a lot of these fad diets that are sort of cutting out carbohydrates altogether. But really, for a balanced, healthy diet, we need carbohydrates. Our body needs carbohydrates, the brain needs carbohydrates, and they can really benefit our health and our gut microbiome. So really, instead of cutting out carbohydrates, the importance should be stressed on what type of carbohydrates you're having. We should consume fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and less food items such as meat and alcohol. Citrus fruits in particular have been shown to reduce gut inflammation, and omega-3s, which could be found in plant foods such as walnuts or through an algae supplementation, as well as vitamin D, have also been shown to reduce inflammation. So the sources of dietary fiber are predominantly plant-based, meaning that those who follow a plant-based diet are likely to be getting a sufficient amount. However, those who don't follow a plant-based diet may be needing some extra sources of that dietary fiber. I do want to take a second just to talk about plant-based diet in a little bit more detail. So it has been highlighted that a predominantly plant-based diet has shown multiple effects on the microbiome, which has had great benefits for overall health. So plant-based foods that are digested and fermented by the gut microbiome cause a secondary effect where appetite is actually suppressed following a plant-based meal, and then your secondary meal, you don't feel the need to eat such a large quantity. And then overall, this has an effect over time of helping to increase weight loss without feeling hunger or dissatisfaction. Plant-based fats and polyphenols as well have shown positive alterations in microbiota diversity, which diversity is really the key thing here. And studies looking specifically at vegetarian and vegan diets in comparison to omnivorous diets have found that these individuals have a more diverse and a more stable gut microbiome. And this is likely to due to that high fiber content naturally in those foods, the increase of short-chain fatty acid production lower down in the gut, which is beneficial for gut health, and also the anti-pathogenic and the anti-inflammatory effects of things like polyphenols, which are high in plant-based foods. So I mentioned IBS briefly. Now, IBS could have a kind of genetic component to it, and it doesn't necessarily follow with the same recommendations as I've given for the general health of your gut microbiome. So for IBS, some of those things will be applicable, but I recommend to follow the FODMAP diet, which is explained a little bit more in the blog below. The NHS actually do have a specific FODMAP diet that you can go online and look at in a little bit more detail, and I've included the link to that below as well. So then the last topic I want to cover today is prebiotics and probiotics. So they can offer some benefits. They're not necessarily going to fix everything, but in certain circumstances they can help to improve the gut microbiota. There are two strains of probiotics, lactobacillus or bifidobacterium. These can be added to food or supplemented to enable them to grow safely in the gut. Do your research, look at the types of brands that you're getting, see if you can find any research on these and whether they've actually been beneficial in real people. Some natural forms of probiotics generally come in the form of fermented foods. So these are things like kombucha, kimchi, sauerkraut, pickles or miso, and there are some others around as well. And then prebiotics, these are foods that can be eaten that promote the growth of the beneficial bacteria. So they're not actual bacteria themselves, but they help the bacteria that you already have to grow into the most favorable and diverse gut microbiome. These can be found naturally in high fiber fruits and vegetables such as garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, tomatoes, bananas, plums, apples, grains, cereals and nuts. That's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. I've also included a bit of more of a detailed explanation below about carbohydrates and fiber and the different types of carbohydrates and where it kind of all fits in. So if you wanted to have a read of that, do feel free. It can sort of give you a bit more clarity on the situation. But generally what we're looking for is those high fiber foods, lots of fruit, lots of vegetables, lots of whole grains and legumes, generally following a plant-based diet where you can, and considering adding in maybe some pre and probiotics if that's something you're interested in. Lastly, looking at the FODMAP diet if IBS is something that you struggle with. So I hope you find that really helpful, and I will see you again soon in the next video. Bye!